Hello, history scholars. This is the second video lesson for what topics concern our nation. So in this video, we're going to get into specific topics that people talk about, care about, and argue about. All right, continuing your notes, we're going to start with the topic of defense spending. So what exactly is defense spending? Well, essentially, it's how much money the government spends on our military in different ways to protect us at home. In the same conversation, you might hear people talk about terrorism. So sometimes these two topics are connected because unfortunately terrorism is prevalent in the world that we live in today. So the definition of terrorism is people or groups of people who commit or they can threaten to commit acts of violence for political, religious, or social reasons. So terrorism can happen abroad, meaning outside of the country. Acts of terrorism can occur by people from outside of the country to our country. And then, unfortunately, terrorism can also occur inside of our country by American citizens. So the conversation centers around how much money should be spent to combat things like terrorism. All right, so I have a graph here, and all it is doing is showing you how much money in the billions of dollars are spent by different countries around the world. And you can see that the United States is actually a leader in defense spending. So we do spend a lot on our military and on protecting ourselves at home, okay? All right, so that might give you another view of terrorism and how the United States spends money to keep us all safe. Okay, so this one I didn't animate because I just want you to think about these questions. The next topic is climate change. And climate change, this debate is often connected to the environment, our outside world. So, the information is about regional climate patterns changing. There is evidence that talks about how temperatures have risen and how temperatures have gotten colder over the years. So these are facts. Now, what do people talk about? Has it really changed? This is a debate. If the climate patterns have really changed or if people are making it up. Has it changed because of more people on the planet? And or has it changed because of pollution? And this is also related to how many people are on the planet. Okay, so that is another topic that people debate about. So the world is getting hotter, hence the world in an ice cream cone, and it's dripping. And these images are just supposed to help you think about what people are talking about. So this is supposed to portray pollution. And because we have increased temperatures, the polar ice caps, so icebergs, are melting into the sea, which leads people then to talk about what's going to happen to wildlife that thrive in these very, very cold Arctic or subarctic temperatures. Okay, here's the next public issue, and that is unemployment. Now, when people talk about unemployment, that is often linked to poverty, okay? So unemployment means that people don't have jobs. So the conversation centers around how to increase jobs. You might also hear people talk about unemployment like when factories shut down. And when factories shut down, because factories employ so many people, sometimes in the hundreds, sometimes in the thousands, all of those people then have to find other places to work. And sometimes it's not very easy for them to find work, okay? So if you're parent person, for example, if they don't have a job, it's very hard for them to provide for their families. And when families aren't getting the things that they need, like a roof over their heads, if they don't have a house, if they can't pay for electricity, if they can't pay for gas or to feed their children, those become hardships. And the country talks about how we can make sure that people find jobs, get jobs, and keep jobs. Okay, so here's our next public issue, and this has to deal with your age range, and that is childhood obesity. So what they have found is that since the 1970s, that was quite a long time ago, huh, kids? Since the 1970s, the percentage of children and adolescents affected by obesity has more than tripled. So that means that more and more kids are overweight. And it becomes a public issue because that means that our kids aren't healthy, and unhealthy kids turn into unhealthy adults, and that isn't super great for the nation. So that's what the conversation is about. How do we keep kids from gaining more and more weight as they get older? So often what is talked about with childhood obesity is that one of the factors contributing to that is that kids are moving less and less. So maybe instead of going outside and playing, say after school or on the weekends, kids are staying inside playing on some kind of electronic device. Um, More and more families are eating unhealthy processed foods, and that contributes to obesity. And a lot of American kids don't get enough sleep, and part of that has to do because they're on their electronic devices. So the conversation is about people implementing changes, or some people say the changes shouldn't be implemented to help kids. So, for example, years ago, there were changes made in what kind of options there were for school lunch choices. Okay, so that kids would start having better choices and hopefully um, be healthier kids. Okay, so here are some infographics that talk about childhood obesity, and this is the causes of childhood obesity. And this one is titled Child Obesity Snapshot. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on here for just a moment so that you can look at the different statistics on each of the infographics. And if you want a little bit more time, go ahead and pause it so that you can look at the information a little bit longer. Okay? Now, I'm actually going to stop it there so the video doesn't run too long and you can get ready for the next segment in our series.